That's one of the things that's the most interesting to me, because whether you should rent or buy, obviously it depends a lot on your situation, and the longer that you're going to be there, the more it makes sense to buy.
Sure.
As long as you're financially stable. But there's also your specific market that you have to take into account. And the way that we figure this out is
Hi, John. How are you, man?
I'm always itching to get in here. It's always good to see you guys.
Good. How you been?
Good. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah,
Look,
very good.
I didn't want to put attention to it, but you can't avoid it. I said, boy, you get punched in the eye, and you just went, yeah, it's one of them weekly things.
Yeah. Saturday's the MMA class at my gym, so that's when I'm sparring with the MMA guys.
So do you come home from sparring with dark glasses on so your wife doesn't see it right away, or does she
No.
just expect a different injury every time you walk in the door?
She's used to it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't. It doesn't even hurt. It's just, you get
Oh, no, I know.
tagged with one and it makes a little mark. But
Yep.
of course, it's the week that I'm doing this. But
Yeah, and then you tell people the guy was like 6'8" and 320 pounds.
Yeah. Nope. He wasn't.
Okay.
There's some tough dudes. He's probably like $175 and about my height.
Yeah?
About my same reach, but he's a tough dude.
You wouldn't want him beating on you all the time.
No.
Okay.
Actually, it might have been one of them guys. There's a few really, really tough ones that I spar with a lot. So
thank goodness it's just this and not like a street fight.
yeah, no, that's not me.
They're the kind of guys you want as a friend.
That's what I don't want people think is, like, whenever I meet a new client or something and I have something on my face, I'm like, I don't want them to think I'm some sort of idiot who's getting drunk and bar fighting or something.
It just so happened it was downtown the other night at about 2 a.m. and these four guys. You should anyway.
I was drunk and I started calling people names and trying to get in a fight. And
Totally my fault. I
not
started
the case.
it.
No.
Yeah, that's not you.
No.
No, that's not you. I don't even know if I would be amazed to see you drunk even.
Yeah, no, I'll do it every now and then.
Okay.
Not
believe
too
you.
often.
Okay, I might have to double dog dare you one of these days.
Yeah, there you go.
We talk about this occasionally, John. Some places are a lot cheaper to live than others.
Yeah.
I mean, you can go out west, you can go out east, and it is crazy. You think that prices are high around here. They're not.
Yeah.
But when it comes to like the cheapest or most expensive, bigger cities to live in across the country, how are they? And especially when it comes, renting versus owning in some of these cities.
That's one of the things that's the most interesting to me, because whether you should rent or buy, obviously it depends a lot on your situation, and the longer that you're going to be there, the more it makes sense to buy.
Sure.
As long as you're financially stable. But there's also your specific market that you have to take into account. And the way that we figure this out is we look at the average, the median sale price, and we divide that by the median annual rent.
Okay.
And so if that number is 15 or below, it's much better to buy.
Okay.
If that number is 21 or higher, it's much better to rent. That means, the average rent price might be, basically you're going to be able to rent a similar property to what you'd be buying, except the rent's going to be way cheaper than what your mortgage would be.
Okay.
What's interesting to me too is, so when you're looking at the most expensive cities on here, I think out of the 10 most expensive cities, I think 5 of them are in California. The most expensive city, when you're talking about rent prices compared to actually buying a home, the most expensive one to buy is in San Jose, California. That price to rent ratio, remember, anything over 21 means it's quite a bit cheaper to rent than it is to buy. Well, in San Jose, that number is 38.
Holy.
So the typical monthly rent is $3,181. And the typical sale price is $1.43 million.
Wow.
So that's pretty crazy to me. And then you've got San Francisco in there with a price to rent ratio of 30. There, it's the typical rent is a little over $3,000 a month, and the typical home purchase price is about $1.09 million. Seattle, Washington is in the third most expensive. Typical rent is $2,100 a month, and typical home to buy is almost $690,000. You got Salt Lake City, Utah. That's one that's boomed like crazy lately and become much more expensive. You got Los Angeles, California, Denver, Colorado, Portland, Oregon, San Diego, California, Austin, Texas, another one that's boomed pretty recently. And then Sacramento, California.
It's funny when we were talking about this. I used to live probably about a half hour out of San Francisco back in the mid '80s.
Okay.
And I think to myself now, how did I afford it back then? Because I wasn't making a ton of money out there. And there's no way I would do it now. There's no way I'd move out there now.
Yeah.
But that is just crazy.
And I think a lot of that area has to do with the tech boom.
Oh, sure it does. Sure.
Know, there's a lot of people making big bucks out there.
Yeah. Have you ever been out to British Columbia, Victoria Island, British Columbia?
I have not. No, I've been to
average.
Seattle,
What'd they say? The average house when I was there a couple years ago, 950,000.
Yeah,
is the average.
Canada is crazy. I wouldn't mind going and looking up the information for Canada, because some of those big cities in Canada, man. Nuts.
I mean, these were really nice places, and it's a really nice looking city, but I don't know if it's $1 million nice.
I know. And this is just like the typical house there costs this much. So that's you're not getting a luxury home for $1.4 million in San Jose. It's going to be pretty modest. And then now this is probably what people are going to find more interesting. The best price to rent ratios for buying. There was a 4-way tie for first place. All 4 of these cities had a price to rent ratio of 12. Anything under 15 is good to buy. So 12 is great, especially for a large city. There's other factors you want to take into account too when you're thinking. It doesn't just automatically mean it's a great idea to buy here. But number 1 is Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Kind of the tiebreaker was which one. I don't know how they broke the tie. So the cheapest out of the ones that had a price to rent ratio of 12, the lowest typical home sale price was Pittsburgh. And so in Pittsburgh, the typical monthly rent is $1,333, and the typical home purchase is $188,000. One thing you'll notice that's a little bit concerning about all of these cities that ranked at the most affordable to purchase a home in comparison to renting is they all have negative population growth. Yeah. And when you're talking about, making an investment in real estate, you're obviously hoping it's going to go up in value. Sure. Negative population growth isn't a good sign for, your market going up in value. They did go up. These markets still did go up in value like over the past year, and I'll get into that in a little bit. But so you've got Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, New Orleans, Louisiana, Chicago, Illinois, and Cleveland, Ohio, all tied at a price to rent ratio of 12. All pretty affordable sale prices. The highest one was Chicago with a typical sale price of $279,202. So not too crazy, not much higher than what we have here. Obviously, there's parts of Chicago that are going to skew that, where you've got some neighborhoods where the houses are all really dumpy and they're very low sale prices. Sure. And you've got those high-rise condos close to the lake that are going to be crazy expensive. Right. So, if you're in that market, you probably want to break this down even further by neighborhood. But, some other ones that were... What I looked at is they also included in this report, I was able to find which ones had the best home price growth. And specifically what I looked at, it was from 2022 to 2023 who had the highest home price growth. So a few of these here in the top 10 had pretty good home price growth. And like Pittsburgh, New Orleans, Chicago, Detroit, St. Louis, they didn't have the greatest. They weren't towards the top. They were kind of low to mid pack in home price growth. But Cleveland, Ohio actually had pretty solid home price growth, 9.2% in the past year. Oh, wow. Yeah. Memphis, Tennessee was at 10% in the past year. They were ranked 5th on the most affordable, so they had a price to rent ratio of 13. Cleveland, Ohio, like we said, was one of the ones that was tied for first at 12. The big one that stood out to me is Miami, Florida. Miami, Florida has a price to rent ratio of 13, which is still great to buy there. And they had... from 2022 to 23, their price growth was 16%. They were the highest out of all 50 of these large metros studied in price growth from 2022 to 2023. Their population growth is also massive in Miami. Yeah, and you'll notice out of the highest year, with 2022 to 2023 price growth, the 4 highest were all in Florida. So, but Miami, out of those 4 Florida cities, Miami was the one with the best price to rent ratio still. Okay. So then you've also got Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. That was 11.1% price growth. And then you've got Tampa, Florida. The other Florida markets didn't make it into the top 10 of the price to rent ratio, but they were also the other. So you had in the price growth, you had Tampa, So the highest one was Miami with 16%, Jacksonville, Florida, 13.8%, Orlando, Florida, 12.5%, and Tampa with 12.3%. Tampa was the only other one besides Miami that cracked the top 10 for price to rent ratio.
Yeah, and Tampa is nice.
Yes,
I've been there a few times. I've been to Orlando a few times, but I got a lot of relatives in Tampa. Nice little place down there. Florida's all right.
And then we noticed like some of those other places that experienced massive population growth, like Salt Lake or Austin, Texas. A few of those were really rough on the price to rent ratios. It was not looking good. Where buying a home there is so much more expensive than renting. But two of these 4 Florida markets that's experiencing massive population growth, massive increases in home prices are still pretty favorable to buy something over renting. And you don't know how long that's going to last for, but that kind of interests me. It means those places are, if the trend continues, at least for a while, you're going to be looking pretty good if you bought a home there, especially if you bought a home there, a year ago.
Sure, right.
You probably got into it fairly affordably compared to what it would cost to rent, and your home price has gone up 16% in a year.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of equity for those people.
Now, if you were ever to move coast to coast, south, north, what would you do? Where would you go?
Man, that's a hard question. I haven't thought about this too much. If it didn't matter to be close to family and close to home, there's certain things I like about the big city. I like the mountains a lot.
Yeah.
So
I hate big cities.
There's something I like about the energy and the pace of it, but then there's also like I've never lived in a big city, so there's massive inconveniences. I'm sure that I'd quickly realize. Denver, not based on this data, but I like Denver a lot.
Sure.
I've been there. I mean, I don't know. Denver has pretty good weather year round. You still get all 4 seasons. You got mountains. Or like I've heard Salt Lake is amazing. Boise, Idaho is another one that's boomed crazy.
And I like the 4 seasons if they were all 4 months apiece, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Instead of us getting 2 months of summer, 2 months.
I know.
8 months of winter.
Yeah. My brother-in-law lived in Colorado and he loved it there.
Oh yeah. Okay.
That's a really good question. I haven't given that much thought. I'm so locked in here with my my real estate career.
I know.
I've set my roots down. So.
See, where I'm getting to the point now where we are starting to look into that kind of stuff. So I love it here.
Well, if you like Miami, Florida,
7 or 8 months a year,
Miami, Florida. If I was to base my decision based on this information, I mean, Miami, Florida is a pretty great bet.
Water. I love being around water.
Yeah.
Yep. Perfect.
Yeah.
All right.
Interesting stuff, though. This stuff fascinates me.
So if you're going to pick a big city, that's the thing. If you're going to move, even though maybe somebody, I'm just going to pick somebody and say, or a place and say, San Francisco.
Yeah.
Still, if you're planning on moving somewhere like that, why not get a hold of somebody like you? Because you can still feed this information to them. It sucks that they're going to be moving out of our neck of the woods, but that's what you guys are here for.
Exactly. Yeah. And this is something like some of the information I give on the podcast is really hard for the average person to access. But this was a study done by HomeBay where they studied all this information and compiled all the data. So this is something anybody could go out there and find. If you just Google like price to rent ratio HomeBay, you could find all of the information that I just talked about. I don't have any, affiliation with that website or anything.
Right.
It's great information if you're thinking, let's say you got job offers in a few different cities, you're looking to move. I would certainly look at this, because look at which ones have the more affordable cost of living. If you want to invest in home ownership, which ones are more favorable to invest, which ones are more favorable to buying. And then also which ones have positive population growth, which is going to be a good indicator of values going up, and which ones, have strong price growth.
And if you do send somebody out to San Francisco and all of a sudden their new neighbors go, you know what, I want to move to Grand Forks. You know any good realtors? They're going to go, yes,
or they
I do.
move to San Francisco, they don't like it and they want to move back.
Exactly. They still got your name. Are we a wrap with this one?
Yeah, that's about all I brought.
Okay, so you're going to be back again on Friday.
Yep.
Okay.
I will be.
If somebody wants to get a hold of you, realty expert John Brodin, how do they do that?
Yeah, 701-213-5428. Follow me on my socials. Subscribe to me on YouTube. Check me out on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn. I'm everywhere. So
have yourself a groovy day, man.
Yeah, you too, John.
All right. There you go. That is your Berkshire Hathaway bi-weekly podcast. Love it when John Brodin is in here. He'll be back again in a couple of days, Friday morning at 10 o'clock. Until then, y'all have yourself a great day.